Hello everyone and welcome back to the Mania 7K World Cup 2025. This quarterfinals we'll be discussing the matches and their main highlights this round has to offer. So without further ado, let's kick things off with South Korea versus Malaysia.
The only Friday match of the quarterfinals featured a rematch of the MWC 7K 2024 Grand Finals. South Korea entered the showdown as heavy favorites, while Malaysia will have to try and get through the ordeal in one piece. The proceedings opened with Malaysia picking LN2, but it ended as a breakpoint for their opponents. YZ1155's FC would end up as the second best score on the SEB map over the weekend. It comes as no surprise that when Rice 3 was picked, we witnessed another 999,000 effort from Kalkai, helping South Korea pick up their second point. Kareno Seiso ended with a 4-way full combo, but it was South Korea's LN inverse accuracy that made the 11,000 difference between them and Malaysia. Kalkai may have met a grievous fate on Rice 6 as combo breaks due to possible keyboard issues gave Malaysia their only point of the match. The Koreans were quick to recover though as Reserve and Crushers double FC on Ataraxia put them up 4-1. Evolutionary Anima saw its top score of the weekend from YZ1.55, helping their team secure match point. The match closed out with yet another weekend-topping performance from YZ1155 and Reserve on Hybrid 1. South Korea may have conceded a point for the first time in this match, but it is probably just a small blip in their campaign. Malaysia, on the other hand, will have to move on from this match and look forward to their opposition in the losers bracket. New Zealand dropped to the losers bracket despite a commendable performance against the Philippines, while Singapore entered this weekend coming off a comeback win against Poland. To the amusement of the commentators, this week's technical rice chart morning loom was Singapore's opening pick. New Zealand's players seemed like they didn't mind this at all as they took their first point of the match. The Kiwis continued the technical map show with Hybrid 2. Doggy That Sucks may have had the only full combo on the chart, but it was still the duo of Robeats and Do You Fart that picked up the point. The Singaporeans were finally rewarded with their point on Rice 1, with Doggy That Sucks missing out on the FC. Team New Zealand managed to take back the momentum immediately on LN2 as unfortunate misses from Origami Best tanked their team's total. The next two charts, Rice 2 and Rice 6, gave us a show of consistency coming from Worm's double 966,000 performance, pushing the Kiwis to get their 4th and 5th point respectively. Team New Zealand dealt the final blow on Singapore's chances by winning Evolutionary Anima. Singapore says goodbye to MWC 7K 2025 with their best finish in recent memory, while New Zealand will have to see who they will face on the following match day for a spot in the semi-finals.
The Battle of Spain vs Denmark was bound to take place on the rice fields as both teams protected RC and banned LN. Lucas 678 found themselves the sole combo survivor of the first half of their team's peak Rice 3, and combined with the accuracy advantage, that was enough to take the first point. Denmark responded with their Protect Rice 2, but were powerless against Spain's double FC that survived until the final quarter of the map. Spain didn't take long at all to pick Hybrid 3, and the map went as a mini tiebreaker would, with twists and turns and score flips around every corner. In the end, it was Lucas' both accuracy and combo consistency that made the difference, as their 959,000 was nearly 50,000 above the next best score. Down 0-3, Denmark tried their luck on LN2, but were yet again reminded of Lucas' consistency, and even though they had Manuel San beat and the score gap was down to 7,000 near the end of the map, their late drop sealed the deal for another point in Spain's favor. Spanish Protect Rice 6 went as you might expect, with Lucas scoring a 990,000 FC and their team securing match point. Rice 1 was Denmark's last resort, and despite moments of hope brought by Manuel San's struggles, Joel suffered a stream of 200s at the very end of the map, and that was enough for Spain to edge out the win by 7,000 and sweep the match.
The Russian Federation's relegation to the losers bracket came from a loss against an insurgent Hong Kong. On the other hand, Sweden aims to further their progress in what could be their best MWC 7K. Meiju led the charge in Sweden's first pick, Hybrid 2, to give Russia their first point. Curry's full combo on Aliake continued their team's march, grabbing their second point. Team Sweden unfortunately could not find a break since they conceded their next pick, Morning Loom. Grievous Fate gave us another Curry's full combo in this match, now giving Russia their 4th consecutive point. The match point was obtained by the Russian team coming off Team Ibuka's MVP effort on Long Note 1. Said player clinched another MVP performance through full comboing Rise 2, which also meant that Russia finished the sweep. Team Sweden's campaign may have ended in an unfortunate manner, but their progress this MWC 7K is still worth applauding. Team Russia now faces the challenge of New Zealand the next day to secure a slot in the semi-finals weekend.
Peru, one of the first top 10 seeded teams to drop to the losers bracket, will have to claw their way back up with their first challenge being Taiwan. Starting off the match, the Peruvians picking Rice 1 resulted in a clean duo score of Love and HD Suicide, with Hero Jeff on the Taiwan side being the only FC in the lobby. The same goes for Rice 5, favoring the point for Peru with the usual top versus bottom score showdown. The next pick was definitely the most interesting one, as Love's score on Tataeshi Tatakai no Uta with a 999,040 score at sub 60 on the 300s gave Peru their 3rd point. Afterwards, Peru went all the way and dominated on the next few maps listed: LN2, Hybrid 1, and Hybrid 3, resulting in a clean 6-0 for the Peruvians. Unfortunately, this is where the Taiwanese proclaim their goodbyes in 7K MWC 2025, while Peru will await their next team opponent in order to move on to semi-finals.
Chile vs Estonia, touted by the casters as a war of overlapping skill sets, started off with a 99 roll for Chile as a sign of things to come. First yard of the match, Rise 6 turned out to just not be Hiseya's map, as the team from South America won comfortably by 146,000 despite Arcaxia's 986,000 FC. Estonia responded with LN2, which quickly turned into an accuracy battle among the frequent misses, and when the dust settled, Chile emerged victorious. Rise 2 was next on the menu, and their Sebax and Hiseya traded frequently in the latter half of the map. The former's better accuracy, however, resulted in a 59,000 point gap and a fairly comfortable win for Chile. Estonia resorted to the Protect LN1, and while the Chileans were sitting pretty on a 20,000 point lead throughout most of the map, they nearly fumbled in the final stretch, and only Arcaxia's last miss saved their skin as Estonia lost their Protect by 4,671 points. Chile answered with a Protect of their own, and by the end of Race 3, Seba X had accumulated 992,000 points, granting them a round of compliments in the lobby chat, and their team and map win by 246,000 and a match point. Estonia picked Hybrid 1, where Arcaxia's consistency and Hiseya stabilizing halfway in, while her counterpart Seba X did not, put the team from the Baltics on the board. Chile closed out the match with relative ease on Hybrid 3 and moved on to face the winner of France vs Canada.
Two of the most anticipated teams with experiences of having tiebreakers during the early game, Venezuela vs Macau, set foot to determine who will move on to their conditional match during the quarterfinals. Venezuela picks LN1 to inaugurate the match, with a 22,415 lead, winning their first point. Their next pick of Rice 4 showed a form of dominance for the Venezuelans as they won their second point with a massive 217,000 point difference. Likewise, with the remaining 4 points on LN3, Hybrid 3, LN4, and Hybrid 2 led Venezuela to win the match. Macau will have to say goodbye to 7K MWC, hoping for a better opportunity next year, while Venezuela will check who determines their fate in their next conditional match. The second winners bracket match, 2nd seed China vs 7th seed United States, was a match to behold, considering the high profile and tourney experience of the rosters between two teams. With Rice 5 as China's first pick of the match, they pushed through, getting their first point with a very impressive score of 991k and 982k by Turks and AF respectively. The Satori and Turks duo, notable for playing the initial LN selections in the previous 7K Mania World Cups, undoubtedly dominated this map with a 992 and a 991 for Satori and Turks respectively, and a wide 108,000 score gap against the United States, obtaining their second point. Afterwards, Rice 3 was picked, and it was definitely a neck-and-neck match between the two teams, and surely enough, US barely got that point with a score lead of 5,012. Had it not been for AF's single miss mid-map, this could have gone to a whole different situation and possibly a much tighter score gap. Unfortunately, for the next few maps, China got the remaining 4 points on LN3, Rice 2, LN2, and Rice 4 to close out the match, securing their spot for the winners' semifinals. The United States, relegated to the losers bracket, will have to clash their way through semifinals if they want to survive in the future stages of this tournament. In every quarterfinals match, who gets to maintain their position in the winners bracket where teams are just one seed apart invariably becomes the talk of the town. With Japan at number 4 and Indonesia at number 5, a lot of the audience definitely would have expected a Rice vs LN kind of match, with the prior team being known for having one of the scariest Rice score averages so far. Starting off the match with Rice 3, Japan immediately dominates with the Botanic and Rain Lily duo score average of 998.5k. LN3 was picked, and this was an instance where a single few LN breaks could cost the entire team's lead, with their score almost neck and neck somewhere in the map. Eventually, the Indonesians secured their first point with a 981k score average, and even though Suzuha L got a full combo, it was not enough to diminish the lead. The points alternated back and forth when the Indonesians took the point for LN4 and LN1, while the Japanese took Rice 1, Rice 5, and Rice 6 into a 4-3 lead. Unfortunately, this is where the alternation would come to a halt as the Indonesians ran out of LN maps to pick, resorting to hybrids instead, with Japan winning Hybrid 2 by a very close score gap of 2,850 and getting the match point. They closed out the match with yet another Rice pick, Morning Loom. Japan will have to face South Korea in an attempt to secure their potential podium spot, while Indonesia will have to work their way through the losers bracket to try and redeem their spot for the finals.
The Russians once again stepped foot into quarterfinals weekend as they face New Zealand to determine who will advance to the semifinals. As the 11th and 14th seeds of this tournament, viewers were all but expecting this to be one of those matches that could lead to a tiebreaker. First things first, with Rice 1 as the first pick, the Russian Federation won it by 25,924 points, Karace being the only person to have seeded map. With Hybrid 2 picked, a score gap of 8,219 points in favor of the Russians secured their second point. And surprisingly, as much as we would have expected a close match between the two teams, the Russians would come in and eventually dominate the match further by winning their next 4 points on Rice 5, LN2, Rice 3, and Rice 6. The Russian Federation will move on to the semi-finals losers bracket, playing 2 conditional matches once again to prove their worthiness of moving on to the finals weekend or ending their run then and there. And as heartbreaking as it is, New Zealand will have to bid their farewells to MWC 7K with a proud send-off for being able to last until quarterfinals. Number 3 seeded Philippines enter the match as favorites to secure a semi-final spot. Team Hong Kong, on the other hand, will be assured of their first top 6 finish in MWC 7K should they secure the upset. The Filipinos opened the match with Rice 2, but it was the Hong Kongers who shocked everyone by securing a breakpoint. Unfortunately for Team Hong Kong, their double FC on Grievous Fate wasn't enough to counter the accuracy of Oji-san and Arquin Olivares, tying up the match. The same veteran duo secured a double FC to give the Philippines their second point. Sunny subbed in for Arquin Olivares on Ataraxia, but the player change didn't affect their team's consistency at all, securing them point number 3. Another full combo from the Filipinos on Karen Oseso gave them not only their 4th point, but also the second best team total on the chart this weekend. A rare long note 4 pick gave us 2 impressive full combos from Oji-san and Tanjing C, but Sunny's better accuracy over Zek meant that the Philippines lead the match 5-1. The Hong Kongers obtained their second point of the match on Hybrid 3, thanks to a double 960,000 effort from Tanjing C and Zek. Team Philippines finally secured a win on Hybrid 2, with Arquin Olivares' weekend topping 987,000 effort. The Filipinos now look forward to the semi-finals where familiar opposition China awaits, while Team Hong Kong will have to crawl their way back to contention in the losers bracket.
Germany and the Netherlands opened up with a rare double LN Protect and an LN3 first pick to boot. Germany won that and their opponent's pick Hybrid 2 and moved on to Hybrid 3. Mini tiebreaker brought a disconnect for Tsukiya Whiskers that was too late to abort and restart, and since the alleged 99.1% accuracy result didn't save on the local leaderboard, the map win went to the Oranje. What Tsukiya Whiskers lost on Hybrid 3, they repaid their team in kind on Rise 3 and LN1. The Netherlands picked their Protect LN4 and were leading the entire way through, with Freak missing out on MVP by 2 whole points in favor of Tsukiya Whiskers in the end. Oranje tried to combo their way to the lead on Rise 4, but one lobby reset later, Germany's accuracy got them the advantage which they wouldn't let go of to secure the match point. Netherlands, running out of option, picked Race 6 after a timeout, and run out they did as Germany won it by 58,000 to win the match 6-2. The time was Sunday, 15 UTC, when hopefully well-rested Venezuela faced off against Germany, who just an hour before won a convincing but over 15 minutes long match against Netherlands. The team from Europe opened with LN3, which they led fairly comfortably for the first 3 quarters, despite finding early drops. Last quarter, however, saw the German players miss again, and only A.145 straight saved them from disaster as they won by a narrow margin of 6,000. Venezuela instantly picked their Protect Hybrid 3, where only Sir Ely survived the mini tiebreaker chaos with a single miss halfway in. And although Tsukiya Whiskers was matching their accuracy, Sir Ely's consistency was more than enough to tie the match at 1-1. Germany picked LN2, which was a story of trade between Blacko and Shizdi, and an allegedly sideward 988,000 FC from Tsukiya Whiskers, which ended up being the 3rd best score on the chart overall. Rise 3 proved to be a very stressful chart to even watch, as the accuracy and score stayed close throughout, and each miss seemed to flip the advantage to the other team's favor. When the dust settled, Venezuela emerged victorious by just 7,700 points. Germany's Protect LN1 exhausted the LN pool, and Tsukiya Whiskers yet again led the way to a reasonably comfortable win. Venezuela snap-picked Rise 5, but Shizdi's struggles gave the Germans their first breakpoint. Out of LNs, Germany opted for Hybrid 2, but here in turn Blacko struggled with accuracy as the South American players held on for dear life against Tsukiya Whiskers MVP and took the breakpoint right back. The Venezuelans immediately picked Race 1 to stun the casters, but they themselves were stunned by Germany, somehow still holding to double FC with about 1/8 of the map left. Blacko missed in the end, but it was not nearly enough to spare Venezuela from conceding match point. The team from Europe picked Race 6, which followed the story from Hybrid 2, as Blacko struggled on their own pick among the triple FC, and Venezuela secured a chance to get the match to tiebreaker with their own pick. Left with the choice of Rise 2 and Hybrid 1, the South Americans picked the former. Accuracy advantage gave the early lead to Germany, but Blacko missing twice in the middle section flipped the lead in Venezuela's favor. With just a quarter of the map left and the tiebreaker in sight, both South American players found a miss, and their German counterparts held strong and spared themselves from playing their 19th map in less than 3 hours, as they won the match 6-4. German fans might want to build Tsukiya Whiskers a statue, or at least buy profile banners to honor the legendary performance of 15 MVPs across 18 maps in virtually back-to-back matches. That was a key reason why we will see Germany in the semi-finals.
The match between the French and the Canadians would determine the team to face Chile. Canada won the starting pick LN1 with Mr. Moose score being more than 20,000 points ahead of the other players. France then followed it up with a Rise 3 pick with a 58,000 point score lead, which tied the match. The neck-and-neck games went on for the next 2 picks, which were Hybrid 2 and Rise 4, the latter ending up as a French point by a close margin of 2,602. Unfortunately for the Canadians, the tied score would not last long when France scored the next 4 points on LN3, Rise 5, LN1, and Rise 6, winning the match. With that, Canada will have to say goodbye to this year's MWC 7K, and France will have to do it all over again to secure their semi spot. A face-off between 2 well-rounded Hispanic countries were on hand to determine who advances to the semi-finals. The match opened to everyone's surprise Rise 6, where the Peruvians scored their first point. Their momentum continued as they secured the next 4 points on LN3, Rise 2, Hybrid 1, and Rise 1, all the way to match point. The Spanish then responded with points on Rise 3 and Rise 4. With the hopes of Spain performing a potential reverse sweep forcing a tiebreaker, their fate would be determined on Hybrid 2, where Peru performed a powerful 960,000 average score, winning the map by 28,904 points and closing out the match. This would be the end of line for Spain as they finish their run on MWC 7K on this round, while Peru advances to the semifinals weekend for the first time in MWC 7K history. The last losers bracket match of the week between the Chileans and the French was a good way to conclude the quarterfinals. To start off the proceedings, France picked Rise 4, but Chile would get the first point coming off Bambi FNF's impressive 972,000 run that outscored everyone in the room by at least 30,000 points. On the following map, Rise 1, the Chileans set a great average score of 970,000, doubling their point lead to 2-0. The French did strike back with a point on LN4 thanks to Moquette and Jerem Monkey scoring a 965,000 average, putting the match 2-1. Chile ended up dominating the next 4 charts, namely Rise 2, Hybrid 1, Rise 3, and Rise 5, closing the match and giving them a semifinals berth. The French unfortunately will have to end their tracks here in the MWC 7K scene with a blissful conclusion in the quarterfinals, and hoping that they can shine once again next year.
So that wraps up the highlights of the matches. Thank you for tuning in the Quarterfinals Recap, and we hope to see you again next week for more updates and highlights in this tournament. Until next week.